Oh, okay. You guys, you are the 36th world. I have 36 people signed now. And I imagined in my heart of hearts that the microphone on my phone worked without my headphones in. And I don't know why I thought that, because if you've watched my lives in the past, you've also watched me walk around my house and look for my headphones, just like I just did. So I think what you needed this morning was just to watch me act like a complete idiot, send out the email with the wrong date on it. Yes, the email I sent you said September 21st, and it is September 22nd. And I realized that about like 5 seconds after I hit send. So we're keeping it real here. So when I talked for about 2 minutes when nobody could hear me, or maybe it was 5 minutes, I don't know. What I was saying was sitting outside for a second, waiting for everybody to sign on. I'm squinting, sitting in the, and before we talk to anybody, your sky is like free medicine. It is one of the most powerful things in your life that regulates your health, and getting sunlight in your eyes. Oh, I'm cutting out. Okay, stinky badinky. You guys, I'm so bad with technology. It's not even funny. Okay, let me see if I can get this to like untangle. Okay. Tell me if I'm cutting out now, because now it's untangled. This is, I think, the microphone. And I just don't have expensive equipment. I should invest in some expensive equipment. Actually, I think that my husband has a pair of expensive headphones that I could use. The picture's not that good either. Okay. I'm going to go inside. So I was sitting outside because I was just trying to give you guys a demonstration about getting sunlight in your eyes. It's going to set your circadian rhythm. And what that is going to do is make sure that every cell in your body is synchronized. So, what does that mean? That means that every cell in your body has a clock. And when your circadian rhythm is not synchronized, it means that it's kind of like in your town. If you had the post office was open from 1 a.m. to 6 p.m., or sorry, 6 a.m., and the grocery stores were open in the middle of the night, and everything was, but you were awake during the day and everything was all dysregulated. That's what happens when your circadian rhythm is not regulated. When you get out in the morning and you get bright sunlight in your eyes, it tells every cell in your body, this is morning, and it gets everything else synchronized. The reason why we're so dissynchronized is because, oh, yes, thank you for asking that. Someone asked, will it even work if it's cloudy? And it absolutely will. It absolutely will still work if it's cloudy, to get out there and to get the bright sunlight in your eyes. Um, it releases hundreds of different genes that make you, sorry, it doesn't release the genes. It turns on genes for making you feel alert, for making you feel motivated, for giving you a nice, healthy cortisol rise, which means that cortisol will then fall throughout the day and be low in the evening. And also, getting middle of the day sun is really important too for your vitamin D. So you need to get it first thing in the morning. And then those of you who are on the East Coast, sit outside because it's noon on the East Coast. Obviously, it's 9 a.m. here. You can sit outside and you can get real sun on your skin then too. And then if you watch the sunset, because the sun is more orange at night, that's telling every cell in your body now it's time to start winding down. So these are the things that are really important for us when we live in an age of electric light, which then it gets everything all dysregulated, because the sun in the morning is very blue. This has to do with the way that the earth is rotating. I just got to grab this from outside my standing. The sun in the morning is blue and it's reddish in the evening. And when you're looking at blue light at night, it's getting your circadian rhythm all messed up. So this is supposed to be helping it. So I just wanted to say that as everybody was signing on, I wanted to give you guys something to talk about while everyone was getting going. And now I'm going to start talking about making yogurt and making El Ruderai yogurt. So, first thing I want to talk about is in the recipe that I gave you, which I just last night went online and edited that recipe. So if you get my emails and you click on the heading of the email, it takes you to a web page. So Substack is kind of like it's a newsletter slash it's a blog. So every time I send you an email, automatically a live version of that email is posted online like a blog post. So for example, when I sent you an email this morning that said I was going live on Monday, September 21st, and obviously I meant September 22nd, I immediately went to the live page blog post version and changed the words to September 22nd. Of course, that doesn't change it in your email, but if you had clicked the title, it would have been changed. So what that means is if you go back to that email that I sent you about how to make El Ruderai yogurt, and you click on the title, my edits will be live. So what I did was I edited it. Um, and then if you go down to the comments, you can see a conversation that I had with a reader, and her name was Beth. And so what Beth pointed out to me is that the cutting edge cultures, which was in that recipe, is not necessarily the exact same strain that William Davis used for his research. So let me show you what I mean, because I have taken the trouble to do some experiments for you guys, which was part of the reason why I wanted to do this live. So let me get some out of my fridge to show you what I mean. So the first email that I sent you guys used these packets from Cutting Edge Cultures. You buy these and they just look like this. And they have 4 in them, but you're not going to actually keep using the packet. You use the packet once, and then for the rest of your yogurt, you're going to use some of the previous batch of yogurt. But they do give you 4. You could hold on to them in case you go on vacation and your yogurt ever dies or whatever. But this is from Cutting Edge Cultures. This is what I linked to. So the very astute reader, Beth, pointed out to me, she's like, the strain that Cutting Edge Cultures sells as El Ruderai is not the same El Ruderai strain. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's important. So we're going to do an experiment. So then I had to figure out, okay, so how do I get the exact strain that William Davis used for his El Ruderai? And I actually turn out that I have it right here. It looks like this. And those of you who are paid subscribers get a recorded video of this live, and it will have all the links in it. So I'll send you the link to this, but you can also just type this word into Google, oxysudics. I know, why don't they give it a name that people can actually spell? I don't know. I wasn't in charge of the branding or marketing. Oxysudics, this is called My Ruderai. So this is actually endorsed by William Davis. If you're just tuning in, William Davis is the doctor who has pretty much popularized the idea that El Ruderai is missing from the gut of modern people, but it's in the gut of everybody who lives a non-industrial lifestyle. So isolated people groups with no antibiotics, no chlorine in their water, no gums like guar gum and carrageenan gum added to their food. These are the things, ibuprofen, these are the things that mess up the flora in our gut. So it's supposed to be part of the human gut. And I realized that I wasn't very clear in my writing because I had some people asking me questions and they're like, so all these primitive people make the yogurt. No, they don't make the yogurt. They don't need to. It naturally is occurring in their gut. It's passed from mother to child. It's just there. It's missing from 90%, 95% of modern people's gut is missing in El Ruderai. So what we're doing with this yogurt is we are trying to return it to our gut. And the reason why it's a little bit more tricky than just making regular yogurt is because it's not the regular strains that people have used for thousands of years because they didn't need to. So, does that kind of make sense? We're trying to return something to our gut because people are asking me, and I realized that I wasn't explaining this very clearly. People are asking me, but so how did people in old times keep this strain alive when they didn't have a yogurt maker that went exactly to 100 degrees? The thing is that they didn't need to because they didn't have all of the problems in their gut and in their diet. They didn't have glyphosate on their food. They didn't have antibiotics. And so we're trying to compensate for that. So, um, what I decided to do for this experiment was I had been making the L-Reuteri using the packets from the cutting edge cultures. But I had this in my fridge. The reason why I had this was because before I visited my daughter in the Philippines, I thought that it was impossible to make this L-Reuteri yogurt. And so I had bought this just to take, it's the one with the 20 billion. For making the yogurt, I don't think it matters which 10 billion, 20 billion, or 50 billion you use. So what I did was, oh, this is the one that's not open yet. Let me show you. Did I use it all up? Anyway, I just wanted to show you guys how to do this in a second. Oh, here's the one that's already open. Okay. What you do is you take one of these little guys, and this is actually loose. And so you just twist it, and you're just going to sprinkle it into your milk and your yogurt. And then that is going to be your starter instead of using one of these packets. So that's what I did. And now I'm going to show you how it turned out. This is actually my second batch now using this as my L-Reuteri starter instead of this. So when I'm going to show you, I'm working a little backwards. First, I'm showing you one that's already done and kind of what it looks like. This is my second batch. Let me just turn my camera here. You're going to be seeing the yogurt and not me. But the yogurt's more important than me. And hey, go ahead and give me a heads up if you can hear me okay and you can see. Okay, Jerry's asking if he can add that to what I've made. So Jerry, if you want to do like the pure William Davis strain, I would not add it to what you've made. Oh, good. Glad you guys can hear me. All good. Perfect. Thank you. Um, I would not add it to what you've made. I started from scratch. And what I wanted to tell you guys is that it turned out perfect on my very first batch, much better than the cutting edge cultures did. This is my second batch, and you can see that it is a little lumpy. Matthew says that he's been doing the SIBO yogurt for 6 weeks and amazing benefits. Yeah, so what SIBO yogurt means is that you're going to do L-Reuteri, you're going to do one called L-Gaceri, which I will show you in just a second. And then did you also do Bacillus subtilis? Matthew Musilla, I have not done. You can make 3 different kinds and mix it together. I'm going to be talking about also 3 different kinds, but I'm kind of skipping ahead. So let me show you. So this is batch number 2 of this kind of L-Reuteri. You can see it comes out a little lumpy. So it got done yesterday morning. It's been refrigerating for 24 hours. It doesn't need to refrigerate for that long, but I do think it needs to refrigerate for several hours. So you can see that it's a little bit lumpy. So I'm going to do is take my whisk and I'm going to slowly start to whisk this baby. Little bit of lumps. Don't have to do this for super, super long. But just a little bit of whisking, I hope that you guys can see this, has produced something that is like completely smooth and creamy with like absolutely no lumps whatsoever. Okay, let me grab a spoon so that I can like kind of try to demonstrate for you what I mean a little better. Okay, the thing that's so annoying about headphones is that now I have to, like, carry the phone with me if I wanna reach something, and I do not like wireless headphones because I don't want all that, Bluetooth nonsense by my brain. Anyway, so here is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see how well you guys can see this, but it is, like, absolutely rich and creamy and absolutely no lumps. So, the main thing I just wanted to point out to you was that if it's separated a little bit, that just whisking it should do a world of good. Now, this taste made from this instead of these packets is, I'm not kidding you, like a totally different kind of yogurt. And one of the commenters, like I said, if you go back to that post about how to make yogurt and you start reading the comments, the co another person also said that when they make this from the El Ruderai bottle, it is completely different taste. So I'm not the only person who has experimented with this. It is super sweet and there's absolutely 0 sourness or tartness. So the one that was made from the cutting edge cultures is very, very, very tart. And this has like no sourness. I don't want to say no sourness, like very, very, very little sourness and very, very little tartness. So I'm just going to show you guys what I do next is I bought some half-gallon jars that are shaped. I'll show you how these are shaped. Okay. I like the half-gallon jars that are shaped like this simply because they are much easier to scoop the yogurt out. And I got these off of Amazon for $10, and I can put the link in what's going to come. But you can also get half-gallon jars that look like this. And let me just hold this side by side to show you. So here's the one I like. Here's the ones that I use. Like these is kind of like a raw milk jar. If you're eating raw milk from someone, it's a half gallon. But I really like this one just for scooping the yogurt out. It makes it much easier. So I'm going to go ahead and by the way, if any of you guys are doing, I'm not sure if anybody on this live is somebody who's set up or signed up to do my gut healing soup protocol, but you can also use these wide mouth jars for storing your soup in too. So, okay, here's when I was whisking it, I actually did not um, whisk it on the bottom enough, as you can see. So I'm just going to go back in, give that a little bit more of a whisk. Okay, I'm not sure how well you can see this, but just giving a little bit of a whisk just literally gets rid of all the lumps. And I actually think that this jar is a little bit slightly smaller than this. So I'm going to see if we can actually fit all of this in or not. I'm fasting right now. Otherwise, I would be eating this in front of you, which sometimes makes me think that I should be doing these later in the afternoon when I'm not fasting. And then I could do like be tasting and stuff. But okay, look at how beautiful. Can you guys see how beautiful that is? It is like the most beautiful yogurt in the world. Okay, so that is the El Ruderai from the Oxysutic brand. And I really recommend that you try this one because here's what I'm thinking. Since it tastes so incredibly different than um, the Cutting Edge Cultures one, I actually think that there must be something about the strain that makes it different, if that makes sense. Um, because it tastes so different. You're not broadcasting? What? Do the shorter ones fit in the Louvel? Okay. Can you guys hear me? Give me a give me a thumbs up because somebody wrote a comment that I wasn't broadcasting. So I just never know what's going on with this Substack Live thing. Oh, yes, you can hear me. Okay, thank you. Okay, next thing that I wanna show you is, now that I showed you what it looks like when it's done, now I wanna just show you how I make it every morning. And because it takes 36 hours, I'm usually just like, as soon as I'm done making one, I start making the next. Okay, somebody can't see me and hear you, but other people can hear me. It probably does have to do with each person's internet. I think you're right, Sarah. If you can't see or hear me, I think that you could maybe close your Substack app. And then this was supposed to send you an email. Okay, here's the deal. I don't exactly know how to explain how to sign on to how to sign on to a live because none of the people I follow on Substack ever do live. So I'm never like the person that's on the end of signing on. But I think that if you have the Substack app open, I think you get a notification that you can click on. I think you get an email. I think there's a way to do it from the desktop. Sorry, that's not more helpful. Joyce says, I was just about to order, but wondered if I could just get a fourth cup from you. Okay, absolutely, Joyce. I'm so thankful you asked that because I meant to say, absolutely anybody who lives in town is welcome to get the starter yogurt from me, and I will give you this version if that's what you want. Actually, that's all I have on hand anymore. Um, and I am happy to give you the starter yogurt, and then you don't have to buy it. I also have like this comes in a pack of 30, so this isn't even open. I also have 30 more like startery things. And then another thing that I did was with my very first package of El Ruderai, it turned out so well that I went into the freezer and I made all of these. And all they are is just like El Ruderai frozen because I just thought it turned out so well. I just wanted like tons and tons of starter. And so I can like literally you come over to my house and I can just hand you a package of that. So, um, next thing that I wanted to tell you guys is that um, before you take it out of this handy dandy little thingy, okay, I'm trying to move this around, and you put into this handy dandy little thingy. What you should always do is put aside yours for the next. So this is what I have right here. L. reuteri LRDR is just the name of the strain. And these are just these little tiny glass things that I have in my fridge. And I'm actually making 3 kinds of different yogurt right now. And so I have 3 of these. This is called El Gasserai. And then this one right here is called Yogurt Plus. So those are my starters. And like I said, I make before I even put it into the long-term storage. Like this is the what's actually going into my fridge. And then this is what I'm making more yogurt. Before I even put it into here, I put this aside so that we don't have to worry about it not getting it getting all eaten and me not having the starter. Of course, then I also have, the stuff in the freezer. That's supposed to work, but I haven't actually tried it yet. So maybe I'll do that next week just so I can give you guys an update and say, hey, it actually does work to get it out of the freezer and do a starter pack. Supposedly it does, but I haven't tried it. So I don't want to tell you guys that you can do something that you can't do. Just going out to my garage and I'm getting the milk that we're going to use today from my garage fridge. Up here it is. So I like this one because it says grass milk on it. There's a couple of different brands. This is Organic Valley. I don't really know which is better. I found 2 different brands that claim that the cows are 100% grass fed, but I don't know. I don't know if it's true. So I am making the exact same kind of yogurt again. I'm going to make the El Ruderai again. But if I were to be switching strains of yogurt, making a different kind, I would wash this. And that's because you don't wanna mix your strains because one strain could take over. Like, you don't wanna you wanna make, like, L-Gaceri completely separate from making L-Reuteri, so that otherwise, if there's 2 different kinds of bacteria in there, they compete for making the yogurt. So that actually doesn't happen in your gut. It's the opposite in your gut, meaning if you're eating different kinds of yogurt, they're all creating a favorable environment for the other kinds of healthy bacteria to grow. So don't ever feel like you're competing one out or the other. It's just that within the limited resources of the yogurt and the milk and the inulin that's in there, one can all out multiply the other, if that makes sense. Um, so we're just going to be using 3 ingredients. We're going to be using this, and we're going to be using some starter yogurt from here, and then we're going to be using inulin. Now, um, hey, Jerry, did you try? Jerry's telling me that he can't see anything on his screen, and I think it might be you, Jerry, because other people are able to do it. So maybe try closing the Substack app or closing down and restarting your computer and then seeing if you can sign back on. Sorry about that. I know, like, Substack is great because it's a free speech platform, but it does still have its hiccups, and I don't know if that's what it is or something else. So I decided to buy organic inulin. So if you're following the Cultured Food Life website is a great website that has all kinds of tips about culturing food, and I love her articles. They're great. They have a lot of scientific references at the end of them, but I don't recommend that you buy her yogurt food, which she calls Prebio Plus, just because it's very pricey. I mean, if you want to spend that money, I'm sure it's a great product, but I don't. This is like, I think, 1/8 the price. Got it on Amazon. I just typed in organic inulin, and then I basically found the cheapest one. Um, so for L-Reuteri yogurt, you're just doing 3 ingredients. You're just doing um, organic milk, and you can see, where does it say ultra? It says ultra pasteurized right down there. The reason why we're doing ultra pasteurized is simply because that changes the way that the protein is structured and allows the yogurt to form a thicker curd. The ultra-iced pasteurization is not bad for you in the sense that it's destroying the proteins of the milk. All it's doing is it's getting rid of the native microbiome that raw milk has had. Raw milk is extremely healthy for you. If you're going to drink straight milk, drink raw milk, absolutely. The thing is, it has all of its own bacteria. And when you try to use raw milk and then you try to seed it with L-Reuteri, all of those bacteria are going to compete and it's not going to turn out very well. So you need to be using milk that's been pasteurized to kill the bacteria, and then the ultra pasteurization just changes the shape, the nature of the protein, and allows it to form a thicker curd. So let's get started. Like I said, I'm using the same strain again in this yogurt bowl, and that's why I'm not washing it. But if I were making a different strain, I would wash it. So um, it's easier to work with a smaller amount of milk instead of pouring the whole entire half gallon in. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, if I were to fill this up right now with the whole entire half gallon, it'd be just kind of hard for me to whisk it. So for now, I'm just going to put like, mm, maybe fill it up about 1/4 of the way. And then we're going to do 1/4 cup of inulin. The reason why I'm doing a 1/4 cup is because I'm making a half gallon. If I were to be making a quart at a time, I'd just be doing 2 tablespoons. Um, Sometimes if people are having problems with the yogurt separating, they might do half. So I'm going to just start whisking first, and then I'm just going to kind of sprinkle the inulin like that because it will form lumps. And this is the food for the L-reuteri, so you just wanna make sure that the food is, like, evenly distributed. So I'm kinda just, like, tapping it on the edge of the glass container, and then that's causing a little bit of the inulin at a time to sprinkle in. Okay. Now I'm actually gonna take my starter yogurt from right here, and that way I can keep the one that's currently in the fridge right now, for if somebody comes over. Joyce might be coming over and getting that starter from me, so I'm just gonna and I have this sitting right here, so I'm just gonna use this guy. I like to do it, like, a little bit heaping, just because as I'm pouring out the 1/4 cup of starter, some of it's gonna stick to the sides, and so I just feel like if I do a heaping 4th cup, then that's gonna make sure that I get enough starter in there. And like I said, it's just easier to work with a smaller amount of milk at the bottom. It's easier to stir, it's easier to whisk than having it all the way full. So we have it about 1/3 or 1/4 full. It looks like it's all whisked up to me, smooth, no lumps. And now we are ready to just add the rest of the milk in. I'm not sure if you can see this, but it's extremely foamy at the top, and that's okay. I think that's from the inulin, and the foam is gonna disappear, and it won't be like this when it's done cooking. So that's like that. I'm gonna take a brand clean cloth that's never been used before because we wanna be extremely careful about getting any kind of, like, bacteria into the yogurt, and I'm just gonna wipe the edges around here. I guess you could also use a paper towel. I'm trying to cut down on my paper towel use. I do have paper towels in my kitchen, but just try not to use them too much. So I just took a brand new cloth. I have like 25, 30 cloths handy at any given time, maybe more. That's kind of like one of my kitchen hacks is that I am like the queen of clean cloths. I have so many clean cloths. They're like coming out of my ears. And every time I have like specific rules about cloths and how they're used in my kitchen. And they get changed out every day. The ones if they get wet, they get changed every day. And then they get bleached. And that's not necessarily true of the drying towels because if it hasn't been a really busy day and I haven't been using them very much, they don't need to be washed every day. But they do get washed every time I'm doing like a big meal that's requiring a lot of drying. I do wash them. But the main thing, I'm getting totally off subject, but I have these things called shop towels. And I have one at the end of my kitchen island at any given time. And then I have like a gigantic store of them right here. And what the shop towel is it's a cue to anybody who's in my kitchen, and my kids know that this is for dirty jobs only. So you don't dry your hands on this. You don't use it for clean dishes. You don't use it on the counter. It's only for like there's a few drops of water on the floor or something that needs to be like a dirty job. Touch the floor, put it back, and you don't ever use it for, clean hand clean towel. Then the nicer looking towels that, look like this are only for clean jobs. So drying clean hands, drying clean dishes, and you never use them to clean, like you don't use this to wipe the counter down or it never touches the floor. If it were to touch the floor, that has to go straight into the laundry. Um, and so those are just kind of my kitchen towel rules that I have. But all that to say, because I have these rules about my kitchen towels, I can use a lot less paper towels. So this guy is all ready to go into our yogurt maker now. And just going to use this clean rag that's not been used. Sorry, when I said it's never been used before, I mean it's fresh from being laundered in hot water with bleach. Okay, so we put this nice little silicone lid on. we're going to walk over here to this little yogurt maker. And then you'll see that the Louvel yogurt maker has like a lower line and a higher line for the water. Let me see if I can turn that so you guys can see it. This is like so unprofessional. My camera in. With this in here. So you put it in first, and then you kind of, after you put it in, then you pay attention to the water line. So this water is already up from the last time that I made it. If I'm ever not making like batch after batch after batch, I will wash this out and I will dry it. But I've been just continuously making the batches. So plug this in. Okay, let me show you guys how the buttons work here. So I'm going to go here to the temp. Right now it says 98, so I'm going to go to 100 and then press it again. And now the time it's saying 8. And so I'm going to go down to get to 36 because I just can press a lot less buttons. So there's 36 hours and then start. And that is ready. Let me push this back. So right now it's 9:45 a.m. here. So it's going to be ready at 9:45 p.m. tomorrow night. I like doing it that way. I like starting in the morning, it's ready the next night, and then it sits in the fridge. So at 9:45 tomorrow night, I'll put it in the fridge, and then it'll be ready the next morning. So let me show you a couple other things I have going in my fridge. Hold on a second. I'm trying to do everything with one hand because I'm holding this with one hand. Okay. So this right here is my Algasserai. So why am I making 2 different kinds? You don't necessarily need to make 2 different kinds of yogurt if you don't want to. But the reason why I'm making 2 different kinds is because we are working on my husband's SIBO. That word stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. He has had heartburn for about 20 years. And he was on Prilosec for years before I used to study anything about health. And so we got him off of Prilosec, and he did the GAPS diet. He was about 90% better, but he had some lingering stuff. So now this is what we're working on. So let me just show you what this looks like. I'm going to need to get a clean spoon because this spoon has L-reuteri on it. Actually, you know what? It doesn't matter after it's been fermented. Never mind. Okay. You can mix them together after it's been fermented. So this is what the Algasserai looks like. I would say that it tastes similar to the L-reuteri that I was making from the Cutting Edge Cultures. And I wonder if what she was doing, I'm trying to remember what her name is who runs Cutting Edge Cultures. I think she helped the lady who runs the website called Cultured Food Life. She helped create Cutting Edge Cultures, I believe. And I wonder if what they were doing when they created that L-reuteri strain was trying to get the really sour taste. So this Algasserai tastes a lot like the first L-reuteri strain it was making. But the newer L-reuteri strain that I've been making tastes completely different than this. This one is much more sour. So what my family is doing is we're switching between the L-reuteri, the Algasserai, and then we're doing a third product too. We haven't been eating it as much, but it is called, let me show you. Okay, this one is called Yogurt Plus, and the label was actually up here. And when I ripped it open, it cut up the name, but it looks like this, Yogurt Plus. This one I'm just doing for our immune systems. So let me read to you what it has in it. S. thermophilus, S. delbrueckii, sorry. Let me start over. S. therophilus, L. delbrueckii, L. plantarum, L. reuteri, B. longum. Okay, so the main one that I'm from that list that I'm interested in the Yogurt Plus is the Beck's Bifidobacteria longum. Sorry, it took me a second to remember what the B stands for. Bifidobacteria is one of the most important bacteria in your immune system. And if you don't have it, then you're going to have a lot of trouble with your immune system. So both the COVID vaccine and or getting COVID itself has been shown by multiple gut researchers to be depleting or destroying the bifidobacteria in our gut. That's why you might have noticed it seems like people have more colds and more flus and more junk ever since COVID was introduced into our world. So I wanted to show you a product, and this is called HMO, stands for human. See if we can read this. Human milk oligosaccharide. I know it has the phrase human milk in it. It is not made from human milk. It's bioidentical to human milk. And this is bifidobacteria food. So I'm trying to build up our immune systems in our gut in preparation for the winter coming. So I've been giving my family this bifidobacteria yogurt, and then I will add this. They don't like to be a crazy person like I am, where they're taking supplements all the time. So I just add this to their food for them. You're welcome. Yeah, family, you're welcome. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I add to their food because they, like I said, they don't want to be spending all day long taking supplements. So I also add, this is fulvic and humic acid. So these are just a bunch of really rich, like volcanic minerals that I also add. And this right here, trace mineral drops, this is basically just concentrated magnesium. So whenever I'm making a soup, a sauce, something like this, they get minerals added to their food. They get fulvic and humic acid added. And then at the very end, I add iodine, a few drops of iodine, because iodine will evaporate. So if the soup is going to be cooking for like all day or hours or whatever, this will just evaporate out. So I do add that to their food as well. But that is just the way that I'm trying to keep people healthy. So now those are what the different kinds of yogurts are for. And it all depends on what kinds of things you're trying to solve. If you don't feel like you have SIBO or major digestive problems, you can be pretty much set with just the L-reuteri, and then that's going to give you all those benefits: hair, skin, nails, benefits, stuff like that. The only time that you need to be concerned about adding the L-glyceri in is just that you're trying to hit the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or the SIBO, from a bunch of different angles. And these two types of strains are producing different bacteriocins. So a bacteriocin is a natural antibiotic. It's a byproduct that the bacteria in your gut produces. And that then inhibits the growth of these pathogenic bacteria that are not supposed to be in our gut, or they're overgrown, and it's causing a lot of health problems. So Christy asked, does the heat destroy your supplements that I'm putting in there? Heat does not destroy minerals. So no, the magnesium is not destroyed. The fulvic acid and the humic acid are not destroyed by heat. The iodine can evaporate. Some of it will evaporate. So in fact, people will sometimes use iodine to breathe it in for lung problems and stuff, because it does evaporate. But it's not destroyed. But yeah, that's why I add the iodine in at the end. Another thing that you can add in is boron to your food as well. Good question. So I'm going to look back and see if I missed a bunch of questions. Yeah, so Joyce said your meal will be ready the morning after the next morning. Yeah, so my yogurt will not be ready tonight. It'll be ready tomorrow night. So it's Monday morning right now. My yogurt will be ready Tuesday night at 9:45 p.m. And then I'm going to put it in the fridge overnight, and we can eat it on Wednesday morning. But as you can see, we already have 2 jars in there, so we will be just fine. Okay, so I am still seeing other people saying that maybe one other person had trouble hearing me. Okay, so let's go to your questions. Ask me anything you want to ask me about yogurt. Okay, the name of the HMO again. Let's see. This is called Layer Origin. You can find it on Amazon. I think I bought mine from Amazon. Pure HMO prebiotic powder. It comes in a little scoop, and I would encourage you to start with maybe like half of a scoop because you will sometimes get some gas and bloating if you're changing your microbiome too quickly. But the thing that I like about the HMOs is that it feeds selectively the bifidobacteria and the healthy bacteria without blooming the unhelpful bacteria. Most fibers, if you're just going to like start pounding fiber because you think you're going to help your gut microbiome, you're feeding both the bad bacteria and the good bacteria, but this one is selective. And like I said, it is the compound found in human milk, but it does not have any actual human milk. So it's what we call bioidentical, meaning made in a lab to be bioidentical. So an infant baby's gut microbiome is supposed to be about 90% bifidobacteria, which gives the baby a very good start an immune life, and then human milk actually really feeds that. And so we're kind of emulating that again. And Wendy said, would the HMO replace the True Bifido capsules? So that's a great question, Wendy. So the True Bifido capsules are what I'm recommending that people take who have spike protein disease, um, either from having been vaccinated or from having had long COVID or COVID too many times and it ruins your gut. So what the True Bifido capsule is doing is it's seeding your gut with the 5 most common strains of bifidobacteria. But this is completely different. It does not replace that. It is the food. So I don't believe there's any actual bifidobacteria in here. There's not. I'm looking at the ingredients right now. There's not any bifido in here. This is the food that bifidobacteria eats. So it would be great though if I have you on True Bifido Pro or you're taking it yourself, you can take this along with it to make sure that the bifido is taking root. So go ahead and keep asking me your questions, and I'm just going to keep talking until another question comes up. So a question that I'm getting quite often from people is, if I make my own L-reuteri yogurt, if I make my own L-gasteri yogurt, if I make my own what we're calling Yogurt Plus, which is for sale on the Cultured Food Life website, she has the Yogurt Plus on there. Are these bacteria strains going to take root permanently in my gut and live there and reproduce forever? That's the question that people want to know. And the answer is, I don't know. And for some people, it is going to do that. And for other people, it isn't going to do that. So why does it take up root and start living permanently in some people's gut and not others? It all has to do with the healthy state of your gut. So if you have read my post last week, you'll know that I'm taking 2 different groups of people through a gut healing diet that I did. I'm doing a local group of people that live in town, and I'm doing an online group. And the purpose of those 2 months is to get your gut healthy enough. And then the month 3, we seed it with different kinds of the gut bacteria. But here's the deal. If your gut is extremely dysfunctional and you start eating the L-reuteri, it may not take root and be able to continue to live. So let me just stop for a second and answer Jerry's question. Might have missed it, but you're not endorsing the first L-reuteri packets then. So Jerry, I kind of feel like I don't have enough information to tell you not to buy them. I'm just saying I like the taste of the yogurt that I made with this better. And this is the only one that I know is actually made from the exact strains that William Davis recommended. And so I do apologize for people buying the starter packet from Cutting Edge Cultures. And now I'm like, "Oh, now use this one." I think that there's tons of benefits to the one from the cutting edge cultures too. So I'm not trying to knock them. I'm just saying I didn't know this until a reader pointed it out in the comments that it wasn't the exact strain that William Davis worked with. So make your own decision. Um, but I really like the taste better of the oxysudic ones. And Tammy said, if I freeze the capsules, do they need to thaw before someone else uses it? Um, okay, so these I don't freeze. I just have them in the fridge. Um, So, oh, maybe you have yours in the freezer. Okay, whether your capsules are in the fridge or the freezer, I don't think you need to thaw them or bring them to room temperature or anything like that. Just go ahead and open the capsule up, even if it's frozen, and sprinkle it into your milk, and you can go ahead and start making yogurt that way. But good question. Yeah. Jerry said, took me a long time to get the first one up and running. I know. I apologize, Jerry. Like I said, I know that from what I can tell, I believe there are some benefits to doing the cutting edge cultures one. And she talks about that on their website too. But I do have to say, this one was up and running on the very first time. So if you do end up switching, you might not have as much trouble. Sarah said, did you say it doesn't matter if it's the 10, 20, or 50 for the yogurt? It doesn't. So if you go on the website, this says 20 billion right here per capsule. When you go onto this Oxyceutics website, they give you three different options for pills to buy. You can buy the 10 billion option, the 20 billion, or the 50 billion. Any of those three will work. You could probably just do the 10 billion because I think that capsule is a lot cheaper, or the bottle of capsules is a lot cheaper. And they're just going to multiply just fine. The 10 billion will be plenty. One 10 billion capsule will be plenty. If you know people in your town, one person could buy it and you could split one of these because there's 30. Oh, 30. Yeah, there's 30 in here. Yeah, you can ask a fasting question at the end, Gemma, and I'd love to answer it. But let me just finish talking about your gut and if stuff is going to stay. So let me give you a worst case scenario. Let's say somebody, for whatever reason, needs to be on ibuprofen constantly, or very often they're on ibuprofen. They eat a lot of ice cream that has guar gum, Guar. I don't know how to pronounce that. Gar gum in it, Carrageenan, any of those gums, and they eat a lot of glyphosate, and they probably have to go on antibiotics. It's like my exact life, like 5 years ago. Um, y- and you start doing this yogurt. You're going to have all the benefits from the yogurt. You're still going to have the benefits. So I want to make that clear. But the one thing that might not happen is if you stop taking the yogurt and you're like, I did this for a few months and now I'm done and I'm going to move on. The yogurt might not take up permanent residence and live there because things are so dysfunctional down there in your gut. However, as long as you're taking the yogurt, you will still get the benefits, even though your gut is so unhealthy. Does that make sense? Now, someone else who never goes on antibiotics, never takes ibuprofen, um, all organic food, no glyphosate exposure, no chlorinated water, et cetera, et cetera. No carrageenan, no of those guar gums that are in processed foods. They have such a robust, thick lining, mucus lining in their intestines that is so friendly for beneficial bacteria that person, I'm just giving this based on studies, those kinds of people can start eating L. reuteri yogurt. They can start eating L. gasseri. They can reintroduce bifidobacteria. They can reintroduce these different kinds of bacteria, and they will stay and proliferate in their gut, such that when they stop eating the L. reuteri yogurt, now it's a permanent resident. That's not going to happen with everybody, and it really depends on your health and your commitment. So I think what we're going to be doing for the foreseeable future is that we're just going to be eating the yogurt for the foreseeable future. I know I can get my kids to do all of those health things. Like as far as it depends on me, I'm trying to keep the guar gum out of the house. I'm trying to give them products without glyphosate. We have, reverse osmosis water that has no chlorine, et cetera, et cetera. Trying to do all that, but they're going places and they're eating junk. And so we're going to have to depend on the yogurt for right now. Um, okay, I have a question. What should I do with the yogurt I made with the L-Reuteri packets? Well, if I will give you some I'll give you some of these so you can start that one, but still eat it. Like I said, it still has benefits. I just don't know if it has as many benefits as the specific strain that William Davis developed. And then Joyce says, I recently learned that hickory root has more inulin in it than the other two. Okay. I'm not sure what you mean by the other two, Joyce. Um, but I think maybe what you mean is that you've been taking hickory root, like eating it. Anyway, I don't know that it matters what kind of inulin you use. Like some inulin is coming from hickory root, some inulin is coming from guava. Actually, I don't remember. Anyway, I'm not sure that it matters. Okay, any more questions about yogurt? And then if not, we can move to questions about other things. Tammy says, how large a serving of the yogurt do I need to daily to make sure I get the benefit? So William Davis's prescription was that you should have half cup of yogurt a day. I tend to eat a little bit more than that because I like the taste of it, but half cup is what is the minimum. Oh, Joyce said Jerusalem artichoke and asparagus. Okay, so let me read your quote again. So hickory root has more inulin than Jerusalem artichoke and asparagus. I love artichokes. I love asparagus. Um, so I eat those a lot. I have never eaten hickory. How do you eat it? Hickory root. Like, do you cook it as a vegetable? And I think what Joyce is saying is that when you eat inulin, it's gonna in like a food like asparagus, it's gonna support the little guys growing in your gut. So that is good. Okay. Jenny said a few weeks ago I purchased Super Smart L-Reuteri capsules on Amazon. Can this have a similar effect as the yogurt? Okay, so Jenny, here is what I'm learning and coming to understand as I'm reading through William Davis's book, Super Gut. Microbes have a first name, and then they have a last name, and then they have a third designation, which is a number. So we have lactobacillus, which is usually abbreviated L, and then we have reuteri. But then within the L. reuteri family, then we have strains. So there's kind of three different designations there, and that some of the strains don't have all of the benefits that the other strains have. So it gets really technical, and there's a bunch of letters and numbers that are used with the different strains. And as I got more into this research, I started to realize that maybe we should try to stick with the strains that William Davis specifically studied. I do think that the strains that cutting edge cultures researched probably have very similar benefits. I'm just being like real hardcore here and being like, I'm going to do William Davis's particular strains that he researched. I don't know that cutting edge cultures put as much research in as he did. Now, the particular brand that you brought up is called Super Smart. And I'm not familiar with that particular brand, but I will put in this follow-up email that's going to come out on this video with notes. I will put the numbers of the strains. Actually, you know what I'll do so that everybody can have access to it? I'll go back and I'll edit my old post with the recipe again, which I already edited, and I'll edit it again, and I'll put the numbers of the strains so that you can look at any bottle that's for sale that says L-Reuteri on it, and you can see what the strains are. Now, here's something that's kind of confusing. So this reader, Beth, who I'm having an exchange with in the comments and anybody can read, she started calling around and asking different companies what strains they were using for their L-Reuteri products. And the company was not answering her, or they said it was proprietary. So that's a whole nother can of worms. Sometimes it might not even say on the bottle exactly which strain that it's using, but this is, from my understanding, this is the one that we know, like scientific evidence does all of the things that I listed in that first post when I was talking about like better skin, better hair. You release the hormone oxytocin, which makes you feel more compassionate and calm, kind of like when a mother is nursing a baby. So all those benefits come specifically from the strain that William Davis studied. They likely come from the strains that the cutting edge cultures used. But outside of that, I don't know. Um, so go ahead and ask me more questions while you're doing that. I'm just going to keep talking. So people are wondering what I think of William Davis's book. So there's certain kinds of books where it's like I read it and I know that I'm never going to move on from it. And that would be what I mean by move on from it is like when you first read it, you're super excited and you're like, this is the best book that I've ever read. But then as you start to read more things, you realize that it has like a mistake and a mistake and a mistake. And when the book called Gut and Physiology Syndrome is usually the acronym GAPS is usually what we use. So I'm never going to move on from that information. That information is like what I call like the crunchy bottom. Like you've reached the bottom. Like this is the best information that I've ever read, and you don't move on from it. But William Davis's book is it has some interesting things in it, but it's a kind of thing that there's some of it that you do move on from. And I think that the reason is because he does not have the clinical experience that the GAPS lady, sorry, her name Campbell McBride, Natasha, sorry, Dr. Natasha McBride has 25 years of healing people from like the most incredible diseases using her diet. And so her book reflects that kind of clinical experience. And I think that William Davis's stuff is more theoretical. So I'm completely on board with everything he says about L-reuteri. Here are some of the things that I don't I don't necessarily agree with. First of all, he's not a fan of fasting. And so I think that that would be maybe his biggest blind spot. He's not seeing the research. Like he's not having enough of like a high level, like you're up on a mountain and you're looking down and you're like combining all of the different research. He's kind of like narrowly focused on the idea of like you add this to your gut and then you eat fiber. So he doesn't understand that when you do fasting, you are selectively killing the bacteria that are very dependent on carbs and sugar, and then that's giving the upper hand to your bacteria that can that are healthy and they can hang on a little longer. So just oh, thank you, Natasha McBride. Somebody wrote that for me because I was like blanking because whenever I'm talking and thinking, I can't like think of names. It's a really bad habit that I have. Like I blank on names all the time when I'm talking and thinking about it because I'm thinking my brain is thinking so hard about the concept that I can't think of like names at the same time. The problem with William Davis is he's not able to synthesize different kinds of information as well as he could. He's like very like micro focused. But not having said that, there's a lot of things that I'm learning from his book. So there's certain kinds of teachers who like I look to like this teacher is like my mentor. Like Natasha McBride, she's like my mentor. Like I want to like learn everything from her that I can. And then most of the other books I read, it's like I pull this from it and I pull that from it and then I'm like, not that. And so that's kind of how I feel about Super Gut is that he has good concepts in it. He's right on about the L-reuteri stuff because the reason why I say that is because of the evidence is so solid. But then he just says things that are just I completely disagree with. Like he's not a fan of fasting. His other thing is he says negative things against the ketogenic diet because he thinks that it doesn't have enough fiber in it. And I see from his limited worldview why he would think that. And there's all different versions of keto. Sometimes people do keto and you can eat a lot of vegetables and you can have a lot of vegetables on it and have a lot of fiber, but I think he's saying like more of like a carnivore approach. And this is why he's not able to Okay, like, this is the kind of research that he's missing. So, there's a guy that I really like, his name is Ben Azadi, and he has a podcast called Metabolic Freedom, I think is the name of his podcast. Metabolic something, I think it's Metabolic Freedom. Anyway, Ben Azadi did a really cool science experiment. Part of the reason I follow him is because he's like me, who likes to self-experiment on himself, except he has a lot more money. So, for the science experiments I can't afford, to just follow him. So he did one of these things that I would have loved to do, but now I don't have to do it because he did it. So what Ben Azadi did was he did a carnivore diet for 3 months, and he got the full GI map before he started the carnivore diet, and then he got it after. This is like the ultimate hacking experiment. He has an entire podcast, where he talks about explaining his results before and after. And his gut microbiome improved so much before and after that the CEO of the company that did his GI map actually called him and said that they were going to have to change their entire recommendations, because part of their company was like, you get this GI map. What that means, gastrointestinal map, means that they're going to look at your gut microbiome and map out the kinds of bacteria that are living in there. And this is how we know things like 95% of people are missing L. reuteri. It's from these GI maps. So it tells you what you're missing that you should have. Like, do you have bifidobacteria? How much do you have? What kinds of pathogens? For example, the pathogen Klebsiella is implicated in autoimmune disease. So part of what we're doing with my cohorts is we're healing the gut to get rid of Klebsiella. You starve it out, and then we're going to introduce new things. And it's based on the work of Natasha McCampbell McBride and Mary Ruddick, and I just kind of assimilated all that and wrote it into a guide and stuff. But yeah, so that works because Klebsiella is very, very, very dependent upon sugar. And so what see, I'm always blanking on names. What is his name? Metabolic Freedom guy, Ben Azadi. There we go. What Ben Azadi showed was that without fiber, you can actually build up your gut microbiome with the um, right kinds of gut bacteria. And that's what William Davis is kind of so hyper focused on fiber that he's just not able to see that big picture. Having said that, I would still recommend you read that book, but just kind of go in knowing that he's contributing to the field. And this is what I feel like with a lot of different people, different books that I read, because I constantly have a book going, different people that I follow, they're contributing something to the field that's important. But there's very few people that I would not say that like William Davis is my mentor, because I'm very picky who I choose in the sense that I'm going to try to now I'm going to try to read everything he writes and become a paying member of his website and listen to every podcast that he wrote, things like that, because I do feel like he's missing some things. There are a few people that I will come across though that I'll be like, that person is like everything that they write, every podcast that they go on, I'm going to listen to. So I'm like, and there even might be small things that I disagree with, but overall, their thrust is like top notch, because I'm always looking for the very best research that I can find in the world. And I'm going to skip over all the rest. I'm going to skip over all the influencers who are blabbing on Instagram, who are just blabbing. I'm just going to skip all that, and we're going to go straight to the best research that we can find in the world. And I do feel like William Davis did that with L. reuteri specifically, that it was top-notch research. I'm so glad he did it. Just the way that he put it together in his book is like, well, you kind of missed some things. What Mary Ruddick did, which was so incredible and just kind of blew me away when I was reading her guide, I was like, this is literally like my soulmate, was that she took the GAPS concepts and she combined them with intermittent fasting, and she combined them with the ketogenic diet and a lot of other holistic things. And so she's getting kind of like that bird's eye view of like, let's pick the best from a bunch of different research and combine it all into one. The problem with her guide is it costs $100, and she really wrote it to be used within her practice for people who are working with her one-on-one. And so when I started recommending it to other people, they had so many questions because it was never really meant to be a standalone. So the reason why I wrote my own and I didn't copyright anything, I just did what she did, which is borrow from a bunch of different people's research and assimilate it, make it really easy, write recipes. I completely wrote my own recipes from scratch and said to people, this is what you're going to eat. And somebody texted me and they were like, I want to be in the program, but I need to be told exactly what to eat and exactly what time. And I was like, you have come to the right place because that's what this program is. But it, all that to say, you really need, there's really very few people who can, who I trust like 99% of what they say. And I would say William Davis falls into like the 75% of what he says is super, super good. And there's another 25% where I'm like, you missed this. Um, you missed the whole. Well, and here's an example of what I mean. In his book, on one page, he's talking about how your healthy gut bacteria can use both olive oil and butter. Butter has butyrate in it, which feeds your healthy gut bacteria, and any kind of triglycerides has something called glycerin, which feeds your healthy bacteria. And then the little like pieces of meat and cartilage that you would get when you make the broth, you take a whole chicken and you boil it and you make what's called a meat broth. That all of those little pieces of cartilage also feed your gut bacteria. So he says that on one page, and then the next page he says, "Don't do the ketogenic diet because," or yeah, I think he said, "Don't do the ketogenic diet because you're not going to be giving your gut bacteria enough fiber." And I was like, "You literally said one page before that your healthy gut bacteria can use olive oil and it can use butter, and it can use the piece like little pieces of meat and cartilage and stuff for food." So yeah, that's kind of my lowdown. So Diana said, "Leslie, so great to see you live again. Missed these over the summer." I know. So Diana, here was the thing. I went to the Philippines for almost a month and then I came back. I was back for like a week trying to get back on like US time zone schedule. And then we had people staying with us for 3 weeks. And so it was like a super, super great time, but I just, yeah, I fell off. So Jerry says, I missed most of the live stream. Will there be a full rerun? Yep, you will get a recording of it. Okay. Any other questions about the gut microbiome? Or, oh, here's a question. I have Berkeley white filters for chlorine. What do I use? What do you use to remove chlorine from water? So what I recommend for people for their water is an under the sink reverse osmosis system. And the brand I would recommend is AquaTrue. I'm going to write AquaTrue in the comments for you. You can just put it under your sink. Oh, it auto-corrected with Aquarius, the word Aquarius. Okay, let me try this again. See if it will let me write this without like auto. Okay. So did that go through? Yeah. Okay. So AquaTrue is this a brand that makes a reverse osmosis system. You can do an under the sink one. If you don't have room under your sink, you can do a tabletop one or a countertop one. And then the other option is to do Collagen water, which is reverse osmosis. And that's just the best way to get all of that stuff. I've never had a Berkeley. And when I was doing research on the different kinds of water, it didn't seem to remove as much as the reverse osmosis does. And I don't remember the details because this was like over a year ago that I was reading, I was researching water. We actually do the Collagen. Part of the reason why I like Collagen is because it has this instant hot water. I just can't, I feel like I can't live without it. You guys, I know this is really crazy, but this is just my favorite right here. This button. Okay, it's like instant hot water. It comes out at the perfect temperature to make tea because when you make tea, you actually don't want your water to be boiling. You want it to be just like a few degrees under boiling. And I can't live without, I feel like I can't live without it. So that's why we do Collagen instead of having under the sink reverse osmosis, just for that. Okay, critical thinker is telling me that Berkey is a tabletop reverse osmosis. I got it for special chlorine fluoride filters. Okay, I like I said, I don't know that much about Berkey, and I don't think that the word reverse osmosis actually applies to the method that Berkey uses unless they might have changed it. I think it's more of like a gravity filter kind of system. I think reverse that word or that phrase reverse osmosis refers to a specific kind of water filtration that I don't believe applies to Berkey, but please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But here's an area that just do your own research and read up about it. So yeah, Gemma said Berkey is a gravity filter. Yeah, I think it's not a reverse osmosis filter, and I'm sure it's many, many, many times better than drinking tap water. I just don't remember when I was doing the research. I didn't think it got everything out that the reverse osmosis gets out. Wendy wants to know if the pilot group is going to be eating the yogurt. You're going to start eating yogurt on month 3. It's going to be a little bit person dependent because some people who have had an issue with dairy, and it will all depend on the reason why you're doing the diet. So, like for spike protein people, yeah, I'll definitely start you on yogurt on month 3. For people who have really, really severe intestinal problems, we're talking about Crohn's, talking about a history of IBS, ulcerative colitis, things like that. We might wait a little bit longer to start the yogurt, and it's going to depend on a number of different factors. So month 3 is going to be like individually working with me on things, but if you what you'll do is you'll try adding in a little bit of milk solids and see how your body reacts to it. Now, if you can get a hold of A2 milk, then you can probably be adding that in sooner, not sooner than 3 months, but yeah, all that is going to be explained, but thanks for the question. Yeah, so Critical Thinker says still hard to find filters for chlorine and fluoride, um, but reverse osmosis does get both chlorine and fluoride out. And yes, getting the fluoride out is super, super important. None of us should be using fluoride toothpaste. I use like a charcoal fluoride-free toothpaste that I really like. Don't use mouthwash ever. So we've been talking about, unless it's just a little bit of hydrogen peroxide diluted with water is good, especially if you have any kind of gum disease. But as far as like commercial um, mouthwashes, you do not want to be using a commercial mouthwash because it's going to kill all of your native healthy bacteria as well as some of the pathogens. But then the pathogens are going to overgrow when your native healthy bacteria from your mouth microbiome are killed. So don't use any of that. If we don't have any more yogurt questions, go ahead and ask your fasting questions, or I'm just going to open it up to ask any kind of question about anything that you want to ask. So I know someone said that they had a fasting question. Gemma says, I believe chlorine evaporates from water if it's left out for a day. Maybe a combination of exposure, then pouring through the Berkey will work. Yeah, definitely. Well, the reason why I'm saying make sure that you research it is because there's now all kinds of things in water that the traditional, like the Berkey and the gravity filters might have been sufficient for in the past, but part of it is the metabolites of prescription drugs that people are on. So I live in a university town where the majority of the women in the University of Idaho are on birth control. And so that can get into the water. And also a lot of college students or a lot of just people are on different kinds of antidepressants. And that gets into the water and is not completely removed from the city water filtration system. So if you're not wanting to be exposed to remnants of people's prescription drugs, that's another thing. That's another reason why I go with reverse osmosis. So yeah, fluoride is a huge concern. Yeah. Um, AZ said, Leslie, what do you think about ADF fasting for weight loss when suffering from methane, SIBO, and constipation? Okay, so let me give a little bit of background for this. So what methane SIBO means is that um, AZ, have you used actually one of the like mouth tests? So certain kinds of bacteria produce certain kinds of gas, and you can buy this device that you use in your own home. You can order it online, buy it, and you put it over your mouth, and it measures if the kind of bacteria that are living in your gut and if they are producing methane gas, and I believe hydrogen gas is the other thing that the SIBO tests for. And so there's kind of two different kinds of SIBO you can have, and one can be more methane producing. So AZ is saying that she specifically has the kind of SIBO that produces methane. And by the way, according to William Davis, about 50% of Americans have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So down in our colon, or colon is also called large intestine, and those two are the same things. Down there, there's billions, or no, trillions of microbes, but they're supposed to stay down there. And then the small intestine, the word small refers to the diameter, not the length. Um, that part of your intestine is supposed to have very few microbes in them, and they're supposed to be beneficial. So when the bacteria from your colon creep up into the small intestine and up into the stomach where they're not supposed to be, we call that SIBO, and they're not beneficial. They're not the kind of bacteria that are producing B vitamins for you, or vitamin K2, or all these healthy metabolites. They're producing toxins, and so ADF is incredible for that because, like I said, this is William Davis's weak point. He doesn't understand that when you fast, you starve it. Like I said, the one Klebsiella is the one that's been the most well studied. It overgrows, and I'm not sure if Klebsiella itself is a methane producing. I'm going to look that up later. If someone wants to open Chat GPT real quick and ask if Klebsiella produces methane and write that in the messages, I'd be very grateful. But Klebsiella has been implicated with all different kinds of autoimmune diseases. What does that mean? That means if somebody has Crohn's, oncolysis, spondylitis, is autoimmune of the spine, rheumatoid arthritis, a number of different autoimmune diseases. It means that when they do that GI map that I was speaking of, researchers find that they have an overgrowth of Klebsiella. The reason why the program works that I did with Mary Reddick, or at least using her guide, the reason why Natasha McCampbell McBride's program works is because it starves out Klebsiella. That's why she has a 25-year history of healing people from autism, autoimmune disease, all kinds of mental health problems, challenges, schizophrenia, whatever. It's because you're healing what's going on in the gut. So yes, alternate day fasting is awesome for that. Um, as you said, AZ, constipation is not something that you should ignore and be like, oh, I'm constipated. That's fine. I just need to take some more fiber. It is a result of an imbalance of the bacteria in your gut. And so what happens is the bacteria are producing toxins, which immobilize or they paralyze the wall of the gut, which is supposed to be constantly moving. So the reason why you lie in your stomach when you're getting your annual at your doctor and they take a little stethoscope and he listens to your stomach, what he's listening for is the movement of your colon. So your colon is constantly going like this and moving, and your small intestine, and that's moving, slowly moving food through, and it's getting absorbed. And if you're constipated, you have bad bacteria that's letting off toxins that's literally paralyzing those movements. So it's not something that you ignore. It's not something that you just take fiber for. Magnesium will help move things along, but that does not necessarily solve your root cause unless your root cause was magnesium deficiency, which is possible. But for most people, it's imbalanced gut bacteria. Alternate fasting will definitely help that, or any fasting, but alternate day fasting is the most extreme kind, and it's very important that you break your fast with beneficial bacteria. So sauerkraut is a good version, but the very best thing that you can break your fast with would be like the L-reuteri, and then using L-reuteri, using L-gaceri, and then using the Yogurt Plus to give you the bifido. So just giving a bunch of different species. They don't compete in the gut, but they all encourage the growth of one another, which is so cool that they work that way. So Christy said, runs to Culligan to get subscription. Wendy says, I've been buying water from the co-op machine that says it's reverse osmosis. Can you trust that? Yes, I do trust that. And I've done that in the past on the weekends when Culligan wasn't open. Because they're only open Monday through Friday. Then I had to go to the co-op and I had to get that water. And I think it's great. And I do think it's reverse osmosis. So any water that's reverse osmosis should be fine. Joyce says, I wonder how good the grocery store water is. And now I'm not sure which grocery store you're speaking of, but I do think the one at the co-op is good. And I've also used the one at Rosars and Huckleberries. And so AZ, just let me know if I answered your question about alternate day fasting or if you have a follow-up one. But I just really want to emphasize that if you read William Davis's book, don't abandon the knowledge that you already have about fasting just based on what he says. Like I said, there's certain researchers that you just never move on from. The stuff that I learned from Jason Fung, his books were the very first books that I read when I went on my journey of reading health books, and I've never moved on from his information. Like, it's just so foundational, and he's a big fan of fasting. Gemma says, I have had surgery for cancer. I had the lumpectomy and follow-up radiation. I declined chemo. I'm doing my own chemo, taking ivermectin, Fenben, and Eziac tea. I want to resume fasting and indeed do a 5-day fast. Can one take nutrients? Okay. Such a good question, Gemma. So I think if I understand correctly, the question you're asking is what can you take? What nutrients can you take when you're doing a 5-day fast? Okay, so once again, I have to give my caveat, which says, sorry, I'm just moving because I realized that okay, you guys look at how beautiful this background is. This is my front living room. I just want that to be my background right now. So I think the question that you're asking me right now is, what if you're doing a 5-day fast, what do you keep on taking? Now, it's time for my caveat, which says that nothing that I say here is medical advice. I'm not a medical doctor. You're not my patient. Anything you do, you have to be held responsible for, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Having said all that, what I am legally allowed to say is if I were the one who had cancer, this is what I would do. So I would do 5-day fasts, absolutely, like what you're saying. Now, both ivermectin and fenbendazole are very dependent on fat to be absorbed in the gut. In fact, you will absorb, most studies say, about 4 times as much if you take it with a tablespoon of olive oil. So I would do the 5-day fast. Overall, I would do a clean fast, meaning I'm not tasting a lot of flavors. I don't have mints in my mouth. I'm not drinking Diet Cokes. I'm not using stevia, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not having fruit flavors. It's not about calories. It's about your tongue tasting a flavor, and that releases a tiny bit of insulin, which is going to make you hungry. So I'd follow the clean fast. However, in the case of the olive oil and the Fenben, I would continue to take it every day, and I would take it with a tablespoon of olive oil. Technically breaks your fast, but it's not a fruit flavor, so I don't think it will give you the same hunger response. Furthermore, what we call that is called a fast mimicking diet, meaning there's certain kinds of things that you can take that will not disrupt too much the hard work that your body is trying to do when you fast for cancer. So you're in a state of autophagy. That means your body is hypervigilant in looking for and destroying cancer cells when you fast for 5 days. You don't have any protein coming in, and so it's going to find sources of protein. It's going to hunt it down, and it's going to look for cells that are old or deformed or cancerous, and it's going to recycle those cells and get the proteins that way. It's a very, very effective thing to do. Taking a tablespoon of olive oil is not going to disrupt that process. Yes, we're technically breaking the clean fast, But your body will still be in a very fasted state. It will still be doing autophagy, and you can absolutely take the tablespoon of olive oil with the ivermectin and Fenbid. You can also take your vitamin D at the same time if that is part of your protocol. I have different kinds of protocols that I use for different people, all hypothetical, of course, all what I would do if I were in that situation. Um, so most of so what I do is I take a list of things that people are on and I run them through ChatGPT and I say which of these can be taken with food and which can be taken without food. So a lot of them, like any B vitamin that you're on, magnesium, there's a whole list of things that you can take without food and take those when you're fasting. The ones that only absorb with food, you can take with the olive oil and continue on those. Normally, when I have people fasting, I tell them to stop all their supplements, but this is a completely different situation when you're doing this for cancer. And so I don't think that you want to stop your ivermectin, your Fenbid. I'm not as familiar with SEACT. That's not something I use in my protocols, but I'm sure that there's a lot of benefits to it. There's kind of like I categorize things as like phase one and phase two. So there are about like, not kidding you, hundreds of different supplements that have anti-cancer protocols. And so I try to categorize them for people in order of importance. And so not everything makes it onto my list, but do your own research and figure out what you want to use. So AZ says no bacteria was found in the small intestine, but archaea in the large intestine. Oh, okay. And that's what's producing the methane is your archaea, and that's what you're trying to starve out. Thank you for following up. Well, that's really good that you didn't have any bad bacteria in your small intestine because you don't want to have it in there. That's where it causes that all that autoimmunity. Yeah, so Gemma, what you could do is email me a list of your supplements and I could tell you which ones you can take while fasting. I think that you can take most of them. You just want to pay attention to if they had a taste, like something like glycine has a sweet taste. That would break your fast if you're tasting it, but if you swallow it in pill form, I'm just trying to think what you wouldn't take. Most of them you would continue to take. I just did this recently with somebody, went through a whole list of their things and wrote like take when fasting, take when not, don't take when fasting. And I can't remember off the top of my head what they all were. Okay, so Christy says no, Klebsiella bacteria do not produce methane. Thank you for chat GPTing that for me. Klebsiella do not produce methane themselves in the way that methagenic archaea do. Okay, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. So when you have this positive methane gas coming out of your mouth, it means you have a special kind of methagenic archaea. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that word right. Methane production is almost exclusively done by a special group of microorganisms called methanogens in the domain archaea, but not by typical bacteria. Okay. So I think what we're seeing is that when you're doing these breath tests for SIBO, it's obviously not going to catch everything. If you're having autoimmunity and you want to know if you have Klebsiella in your gut, you're going to have to do the actual GI map and not depend on the methane gas. It's only going to tell you if you have the methane kind, of which Klebsiella isn't one. And so if you have a lot of money, then you can be one of these cool people who gets the GI map before, and then you do one of these cool, because the reason why I say if you have a lot of money is I think they run between $400 and $600 depending on which add-on features you choose. So there'll be like a basic GI map, and then there'll be like a GI map plus extra uh, extra analysis of extra mapping, I guess you could say. So they're between $400 $600. So do this experiment where you do your GI map, then you do the 3-month gut healing diet, or you do carnivore, you do fast, or whatever you do, and then you do it again. It's very pricey. It's going to be $1,200, which is why I haven't done it myself. But I do have my thyroid labs to show that the autoimmunity itself was gotten rid of. Um, okay, let's see. Okay, so Gemma says you're doing a water only fast. Yeah, so Gemma, if you feel convicted that you want to do a water only fast and you want to pause your Fenbin and your ivermectin and all your supplements for 5 days while you do a water only fast, that is also a completely legitimate way to do it as well. I think if I were the one who was in this situation, which one I did would probably depend on the state of cancer level I was in and how aggressive it was. So if I was in like stage 4, aggressive, rare, whatever, which is actually what I've recently dealt with somebody, it might be a time to do the water fast plus the ivermectin fenbin. That's probably what I would choose. But if I felt like I had any kind of a leeway whatsoever, I would probably choose to do some water only fasting without any supplements at all. And then I would be very vigilant about testing um, and seeing what was affecting what. Because sometimes you can get, in fact, just this morning in my news feed on Substack, I read William Makis. His last name is spelled Makis. He's the leading oncologist who uses ivermectin and fenbin. Just this morning, he gave a testimony of someone with stage 4 metastatic terminal colon cancer who, in only 2 months, went down into almost consider remission, like his numbers like close to 0. So all that to say, things can happen very quickly, and I would be doing a lot of self-experimentation, and I would be seeing what happens when I do a lot of 5-day fasts without anything, and what happens when I continue with my supplements and just figure it out from there. I know that nobody with cancer wants to have to be like their own experimental you're like, "Why isn't this research already done for me?" But the problem is that the cancer, research is done all like 100% of it is done on patentable drugs, and it's not done on fasting, and it's not done on repurposed drugs. So we just have to figure that out as we go along, and I'd be happy to answer, any more questions. I'm just gonna say one last thing before we sign off, unless we get any more questions, is that the post that I typed out for tomorrow that I'm probably going to send out if I finish it. Yeah, nature has no lobby. That's for sure, Gemma. And fasting definitely has no lobby because everybody who possibly sells anything on the planet stands to lose out whenever somebody fasts. Even more of like crunchy, supplement kind of people, even they lose out with fasting. So fasting also has no lobby. But I typed out a post for tomorrow. I'm probably going to send it out, but sometimes at the last minute, something else comes up and I switch it in for a different post because I have all these drafts and whatnot. But anyway, what I'm probably going to send out tomorrow is a question that I received this past week. And I'm just going to talk about it for a second because sometimes I feel like when I type things out, I don't always I don't always get the message across as clear maybe as when I'm talking about it. So I was asked, um, let's say for the sake of argument that you have somebody who's completely on board with the idea of doing alternative cancer treatments. So they're going to do the ketogenic diet, which is going to starve the cancer of glucose. Yes, I am aware that cancer can also ferment some amino acids as kind of like a backdoor way to fuel itself, but its main fuel is still glucose. So let's say this person is on board with the ketogenic diet. They're going to do that. They're going to do a bunch of alternative treatments. They're going to do a bunch of supplements that are really well researched, that are really safe. But the question was, if it were me and I was in a really dire situation, and I had the stage 4 metastatic cancer. It's rare. It's aggressive. Um, it's gonna, take my life in 6 months if some miracle doesn't happen. Would I also combine mainstream chemotherapy with all of the other interventions, with fasting, with all of that, and why or why not? And my immediate answer is no, I would not. Now, having said that, I am supportive of anybody's decision. If somebody feels strongly that they want to do that, then it's not really my place to criticize them. And I know that they're trying to do the right thing and they're in like the scariest time of their life. So I'm not criticizing anybody who chooses differently. But if I'm asked, would I do that? My answer is no. And I have very, very, very good reasons for that. So, one of the top cancer researchers in the entire world, his name is Patrick Soon Shiong. So, his last name is spelled Soon dash Shion, Soon Shiong. He also owns the LA Times randomly. He's made billions and billions of dollars from selling cancer drugs. So he really knows big cancer inside and out. And after making billions of dollars selling these cancer drugs, he came onto the Tucker Carlson show and he kind of admitted that his entire life, in a sense, has been a sham. He didn't say it in so many words, but what I did for my post that's coming out tomorrow is I took some clips. I made my own clips because I couldn't find anybody who had made the clips online of exactly the things that I needed because his interview is an hour and 50 minutes long, and I can't ask people to watch that. Some people might, but I made like a 3 or 4 minute clip of him saying that the thing that you actually need to get over cancer is you need your killer T cell to attack the cancer. And if that doesn't happen, then the cancer is going to come back. And he said, here's the problem with chemotherapy. Chemotherapy kills your immune system, and so does radiation, and so do steroids. You, so this is like somebody who knows maybe like the most about cancer and how it works of anybody in the world. Um, and he's saying, here's the problem with the chemotherapy drugs that I made is he now realizes that they destroy your immune system. And so I understand the temptation to be like, okay, somebody has really advanced cancer. Don't you want to throw everything at it that you possibly have? Don't you want to do fasting plus the ketogenic diet, plus supplements, plus everything from mainstream, plus integrative, plus holistic, plus, juicing, carrot, like just wouldn't you just want to do it all and see what happens? And it sounds like it makes a lot of sense. It really does. Um, but it's important to gather information. Another clip that I put into that post was another doctor named Dr. Thomas Seyfried. I think it's Seyfried, maybe it's how it's pronounced, Seyfried. And there's a clip that I made of him saying, if you want to survive cancer, you're going to have to do a little research and learn a little biology. So his whole thing is he's healed many people, I think hundreds, from using the ketogenic diet with cancer. And he says in his video the exact same thing. It's just the oncologists have no idea what they're talking about. So this is a hard thing for me to say and for me to write about. And I'm really like putting my neck out and being like going against the grain um, in a way that makes me really uncomfortable. But I also feel like I just have to say it, and it's not at all on my own authority. It's more of just like I just feel like I need to get people in touch with the people that actually know the research better than anybody else, and they're coming forward and they're saying like the mainstream chemo actually harms you in a long term more than it heals you. And that if you try to do all of the routes at once, you might have a worse outcome. I believe that you'll have a worse outcome than just doing the natural route. And part of the problem is that the natural route is trying to build up your immune system. Okay, I have to also tell you guys this really funny story. I don't know if it's funny. It's weird. So I was coming up with a new cancer protocol. I'm always like rewriting my cancer protocol. So I came up with this new one. I was doing more research. I was reading about the fatty acid DHA. Um, it's an omega-3 fatty acid and it's super, super anti-inflammatory and it's super effective against cancer. So I came up with a protocol for a client and I said, I want you to eat sardines every single day. It's also, by the way, if you're going to join my gut healing cohort, there's also sardines on there too, because how healing they are and anti inflammatory. But anyway, it was on this guy's cancer protocol. And I said, I want you to do it every day. But I quote, made it up, meaning I've never seen another cancer protocol that has sardines on it. Mine is the only one I know. Other people eat sardines, sure. But I just hadn't seen anybody doing it exactly like that. So I put that on there for this guy and I had a list of foods that I wanted to eat and things like that. He asked me for this. I'm not being like just nosy telling people what to do. So I have him on the sardine protocol. And the day before yesterday, I was listening to a podcast and all of a sudden this guy, it's a YouTube and I'm forgetting the name of the person. I'll think of it in a minute. But he's a ketogenic researcher who researches ketones for cancer. And that's the context I was listening to. And he breaks into this story and he's like, well, what this doctor mentor of mine came down with stage 4 prostate cancer. And what he did was he did sardine fasting and he healed his prostate cancer by doing sardine fasting. And I was like, wait, that is so funny because I literally just gave a client of mine a sardine protocol that I felt like I made up based on my own research. And then, like, the very next day, I hear in a podcast that somebody healed his prostate cancer using sardine fasting. And I was like, we are on like the same wavelength. I didn't even know about that story. And this guy was like stage 4 metastatic to the cancer was in his bone, blah, blah, blah. And then he went on to stay in remission. And then later, the gentleman, he was an older gentleman, he passed away, but not from cancer. He didn't say finally what. I think he said he lived for another 9 years after the diagnosis. And then when he passed away, it wasn't from cancer. And he didn't elaborate a lot on the story and say like what other um, interventions did he use, but he made it sound like the sardine fast was like the only thing that he did. That's what he made it sound like. So I'll find that clip and I'll also put it in my post for tomorrow because I can't even think off the top of my head. I can't even remember the name of the person's podcast I was listening to, but that's so funny because things happen to me like that. Like I will quote make a discovery and then find out that like it actually really really works. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to share that. I know that doesn't have anything to do with yogurt, but Gemma, I'm really happy to see that you're not doing mainstream chemo. Um, just because if it does really destroy your immune system. The other thing that Soon Xian said in the video that I also clipped, because I did 3 different clips of his, he said that you have to think of cancer as primarily a disease of the immune system. And what that means is that you and me and everybody in the world right now has cancerous cells in our body. In a sense, we have cancer, but our immune system is finding those cells and it's killing them all the time. So anytime somebody actually, quote, develops cancer, they have a problem with their immune system. And those are basically the exact words that Soon Xiang said. He said, cancer is a problem of the immune system. And then he says, why are we using chemotherapy drugs that destroy the immune system? So I have people that I meet with in person who bring me their lab work and we look at monthly, they get their labs taken and we're looking at their immune system cells when they're on mainstream chemo. Because I do work with people who are on mainstream chemo, and month after month, their neutrophils and their different immune cells are going down like seriously, like, getting so low that sometimes they have to like, even their mainstream oncologist is like, "We're gonna have to pause chemo because now you have no immune system cells left in your body, and that's not okay, so we're gonna pause chemo, and then your immune system is gonna come back up." So if you're thinking of cancer, if you understand it as a problem of the immune system, and then you think of mainstream chemo as killing your immune system. So, yes, it also does kill the cancer. And yes, it does work sometimes. I mean, it has to work sometimes. A broken clock is right twice a day, you know? So, I understand that. But if it were me and if I wanted my very best chance of surviving, I would not do mainstream chemo. And those are my reasons why. So that's what my post is going to be tomorrow. Any other yogurt questions? Also, if you've made the yogurt, the El Ruderai yogurt, go ahead and drop a little like thumbs up or heart. And I'm just curious how many of you guys have made it. Greg says that was a fascinating explanation about cancer and the immune system, and of course, full of common sense. In that regard, Dr. Makis has been an enigma, pushing ivermectin, Fenbid, and also pushing chemo. Yeah, that is how Dr. Makis does that. And I do love him and support him. And I'm so thankful for the work that Dr. Makis is doing. So if you guys don't know who he is, he has the biggest ivermectin and Fenbid clinic in the entire world. And he has the most testimonies, and he's like pretty much every day on X and Substack, putting a new um, like a new success story of ivermectin and Fenbid up. And a lot of his clients do mainstream chemo with ivermectin and Fenbid, and some of them don't. So there's both. There's both in there. And I'm so thankful for him, but he was trained as a mainstream oncologist, and good for him for thinking outside the box. I do think that he still has a lot of his, old training in his mind, and I'm thankful that a lot of the people are healed in spite of mainstream chemo. I don't know that it gives you the best chance, but you can. Dr. Makis, this is from Gemma. Dr. Makis said to his consternation that sometimes he finds that some radiation or chemo seem to assist, and he's perplexed too. And it might also be that not all kinds of chemo are as hard on the immune system as other kinds are. I'm sure. I mean, that's got to be the case. They can't all equally destroy the immune system at the same rate. And it might also depend on the individual. Like, the goal isn't to destroy the immune system, it's to destroy the cancer. It's just that you're destroying rapidly dividing cells. That's the mechanism that mainstream chemo is based off of. We're going to destroy rapidly dividing cells. It happens to be your immune system cells are rapidly dividing. And so certain kinds might destroy more. And it is good to know that you can heal from cancer in mainstream chemo. I just don't think it gives you the very, very, very best chance. But it's just information for people to consider. Yeah, and Gemma, Dr. Makis has been very, very persecuted by Canada's health system because they want everything to be the official mainline treatments. They don't want anybody experimenting, which isn't very scientific. Science is supposed to be about experimenting. And when you say experimenting, you're experimenting with the safest drugs in the world. Ivermectin won the Nobel Prize in medicine for its use in humans. That was 2016. And part of the reason why it won the Nobel Prize is because of its safety profile. So when you talk about experimenting with drugs, it seems super scary because with a chemo drug, it's like if you don't get the exact right dose, you'll die. It can kill you. But ivermectin is so safe that you can use it without, with very few side effects. So JJ says, Dr. Thomas Lodi, I'm not familiar with him, but I'll have to look him up. An integrative oncologist has recently said that chemotherapy and radiation should be illegal. Okay, this is a guy that I think I'm gonna like, Thomas Lodi. I'd love to read his perspective on why chemotherapy and radiation should be illegal. I mean, I can kinda see where it is a poison. It is a poison, and there have been some things that I've read that actually say I'm gonna have to go back, and sometimes I try to take such good notes on the things that I read, but I don't always write down everything that I read. But this is one of the things that I wish I could go back and find. But actual studies showing that if you have cancer, that chemo and radiation don't actually increase your all-cause mortality, meaning, like, in a lot of cases, you have a better chance of survival or an equal chance of survival doing nothing than doing chemo and radiation. And to give an example with radiation and all-cause mortality, this study was done specifically in breast cancer, but, people with breast cancer that were given radiation, it's true that it decreased the risk of the breast cancer coming back, but it did so much harm to the heart and lungs that it didn't increase their all-cause mortality, which is all that you care about. All that phrase, all-cause mortality, has to do with the, death from all different causes. So if you completely reduce the risk of your breast cancer coming back, but you damage the heart and the lungs, then you haven't increased the all-cause mortality. You haven't increased the lifespan. That's the only thing that matters is increase in lifespan. And so when you look at it from that different angle, there is some research showing that chemotherapy doesn't actually even extend your life because it's so harmful to the body, even though it does, it may harm the cancer. So yeah, it's just a discussion that I think that we should be having, and there are great people like Makis who do integrate with mainstream chemo and the alternative stuff. But then it's just, something to think about. Gemma said, true story. A man was diagnosed with end stage cancer, decided to return to Greece, which is where he came from. He spent hours in the sun with friends and family, ate a Mediterranean diet, and lived very well. Thank you very much. And I'm assuming when you say he lived very well, he completely cured his cancer. There are so many stories like that. And so that's what I tried to kind of like integrate into my guide, things about like getting sunshine, getting outside. Um, I have optional things which include like going camping because there's these stories of people. This is a very similar one to what you were saying, but someone had like either a really severe autoimmune disease, cancer. They just like went out into the woods for like a month and they came back and they were all better. So integrating all of that. Okay, he was in his 60s when he returned to Greece, and yes, he completely cured his cancer. I think that when we hear those stories, sometimes we feel like they are completely anecdotal, meaning like they have no bearing whatsoever on the average person. It's just like something that happened to one person. We don't know why, and we can't learn anything from it. But I kind of look at it as the opposite, as like if your body is in a really unhealthy state, you're going to develop cancer. And so I want to get you back into a more healthy state. And we're going to reduce your inflammation through the ketogenic diet. We're going to build your immune system. We're going to get your omega um, 3 fatty acids up, all of these different things. And then that's going to enable you to fight the cancer yourself. And adding mainstream chemo into that mix, it just doesn't, it's not going to work as well. Forest bathing increases natural killer cells. It absolutely does. It absolutely does. I know that like, I know how I sound to people about, like, "Just go into the forest and do forest bathing." But there's scientific evidence the sunlight increases natural killer cells. Forest bathing, meaning you're in the forest and you're breathing this really deep, oxygen from the forest. Um, there's so many like, plants actually heal the air, and so that's what you're breathing. And, of course, that's gonna increase your natural killer cells. Yes to forest bathing. Okay, well, I'm gonna sign off today, but, let me keep me posted in the comments about if you guys are making the yogurt, if you're enjoying it, if you have questions about it, and I hope that you enjoyed today's call and signing off. We'll talk later. Bye.